I think when they created USB-C cables, I bet they never thought that the USB cable would be used in a still suit for a Fremen costume from Dune. But I bet you nobody tested for that. Give me a second, because this still suit's pretty hot, so I'm going to have to take it off before I get started. Welcome, everyone. How you all feeling today, this morning? Excellent, excellent. Listen, I know what it's like at these conferences. You know, the first night, there's always a bit of a party night. So, you know, people come into the keynote, maybe a little bit sleepy, maybe a tiny, tinsy-wincy bit dusty. I totally get you. I'm with you, okay? So today, I'm going to ask you to sit back, relax, and just enjoy the show, all right? Today, we're going to be talking about Dune. Now, I think Dune is the most amazing book, movie, TV series. It's got the lot. It's a sci-fi fiction book, movie, whatever, and I'm not really into sci-fi. I'm not really into Star Wars, but I love Dune, right? And I'm going to tell you a few of the stories about what Dune has taught me about software testing. New to Dune? Don't worry. I've got you covered. I'm going to take you through the story. All right, but a little bit about me. I don't expect you to know much. So at the moment, I live in Australia. I'm actually Irish originally. I'm a group owner of the test automation tooling at a company called Telstra. And Telstra is a large enterprise organization. It's got about 31,000 employees. I manage the tooling there. There's 5,000 software engineers in our division, 450 test engineers. It's the largest telco company in Australia. And you can imagine in Australia, the infrastructure's got to be pretty big, right? So lots of technical challenges. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit first about Dune. As I said, Dune's a sci-fi. It's set in the future. It is a massive universe post-AI. They decided AI wasn't such a good idea, and they destroyed all the robots. So let that be a warning to us all. But the universe is ruled by an emperor and a number of houses. So one of the houses is called the House Atreides. And we've got the Duke Leto. He is the ruler of the House Atreides. They live on a planet, Caladan. Caladan has lots and lots of water. It's green and luscious. And Paul Atreides, the one at the bottom there, Paul is the son of the Duke Leto and Lady Jessica. They all live on Caladan. The House Atreides is an influential house in the whole politics of Dune. In fact, almost too influential. They're on the ascendancy. Lady Jessica, Paul's mum, is what's called a Bene Gesserit. Now, they are a group of women who have a huge amount of influence to the emperor and the rulers of the houses. So they advise the emperor and the houses on a lot of situations. I like to call them the neck that turns the head. They also have this super, super, super useful ability to see into the future. And they believe in this prophet, the Kiswak Haderach. Now, you don't need to remember that, but it is useful to know that they believe in this prophet who's going to come and save the whole of humanity. They believe that possibly Paul, Lady Jessica's son, could be that prophet. No pressure, Mum. Right? In fact, they even have a breeding program to ensure this outcome, and Paul is the result of that breeding program. Paul has a little bit of ability to see into the future. That's the House Atreides. We've also got the House Harkonnens. Now, they live on the Gidai Prime. Now, that is a very harsh planet, manufacturing, industrial. The Harkonnens have a reputation of being tough, ruling dictators. Very industrialized planet, and they're ruthless and brutal. They're stewards of this planet called Arrakis, which is also called Dune. So Arrakis, Dune, that's the same planet. Now, this planet is harsh as well. It's very harsh. It's full of desert. No water at all. And the Harkonnens are actually stewards of this planet, where they mine something called spice. Now, all you need to know about spice is the petroleum of their time, right? It makes the world go round. And so it's incredibly important. Whoever owns the spice owns basically the commerce and the industry. And spice is also used in time travel. I don't know, you might find that useful or not. But anyway, it's the most important mineral in the universe. Now, the last bit that you want to know about is about the Fremen. The Fremen are not a house. They are a tribe. And they have had to adapt to this desert environment. They have developed something called a still suit. So they're highly innovative. And they developed the still suit because they can't live on Arrakis for longer than 2 hours in the desert, you'll die. So they created this still suit that allowed them to basically recycle their water. So they're highly adaptable, they don't belong to the house, and they're a tribe. Are you with me? Yep, cool, excellent, let's move on. Now, so you understand a little bit of Dune, highly formalized, highly structural, quite patriarchal, and a lot of political intrigue. What does this remind you of? You know what? It reminds me of working at enterprise organizations. Think about it, right? Enterprise, you've got all these mini empires, like these mini territories. People are actually quite territorial in enterprise organizations. They guard their patches. This is my patch. You can't come in here. And I'm going to work for budget in my area. And I don't care what happens over there as long as I get my budget. So it can be, in enterprise, quite adversarial. And people can be quite territorial. People jostling for power and influence into the leadership groups, trying to get that position, in order to get that budget, trying to be more influential. And then you've got these people who work behind the scenes. You know who they are. They're not necessarily in the leadership group, but they do lots of connecting with people. And often people in leadership look to these people for advice. There's a huge different amounts of leadership styles in enterprise. Have you noticed? Like you get incredibly autocratic people, top down, you must do this. And then on the extreme other side, you've got these servant leadership styles and a whole range of other people in between. And finally, there's constant change in enterprise. It might look really static from the outside, but it's not. And I think in particular in the last 5 years, and 10 years, with the ascendancy of tech companies, we've seen the enterprise organizations being disrupted, right? So you see tech companies, they're agile, they're able to adapt and respond to customer expectations really, really quickly. But enterprise doesn't have that reputation, does it? It's slow moving, slow to respond to change. They're quite risk averse. But they can see tech companies threatening their patches, and so they're having to respond and change themselves. And so we're seeing a lot of slimming down in enterprise organizations, lots of redundancies taking place, lots of reorg, restructures. And this is also creating quite a bit of chaos. So what is the spice of enterprise? Anyone want to have a guess? Information, love it. Anyone else? Sorry? Info. People. Oh, yeah. I hadn't thought of that one. Cool. So I thought maybe, when I first thought, what is the spice of enterprise? And I thought, it's got to be Jira, right? I mean, seriously, you don't get anything done without a Jira ticket. But no, I thought, no, in software testing, I think it's automation. If you want to get budget in enterprise organization and you're in software testing, just talk the magic word automation. If you want to get a mandate for change, measure it in terms of automation. So often, I think automation is the spice. Now, who are software testers? Honestly, I'm kind of a little bit divided on this one. I'm not 100%. You can persuade me. But I think we're like the Fremen, right? We're not a formal house. We don't have official mandates in terms of we don't sit at the leadership table often. The role of test manager, I don't know, don't see it very often these days. And so we have to be incredibly adaptable, and we've got to be incredibly resilient and respond to change. But we still also have to influence outcomes in terms of quality. We're there to improve the quality of the products, but we don't necessarily able to do that directly. And so we play this kind of constant trying to persuade people to do things better, to fix that bug. And so I think for those reasons, I think because we don't have that formal power, that we are more like the Fremen than anyone else. Now, normally I've shied away from working in enterprise. I'm kind of a bit of a startup, scale-up type gal. I've been really, what's the word, unsure about working in enterprise. I'm not a political player. I'm kind of straightforward, straight talker. And so I've always been wary about working in enterprise because of that. And also because I find things so slow to change, right? You've got to talk to so many people. You've got to get so many sign-offs. And I'm like, I just want to get things done. So typically, all my career, I've stayed away from enterprise, which is why I'm totally surprised about a year ago, I took the decision to work in this enterprise organization. But when your boss says that part of your role is to be like the Bene Gesserit and to see change throughout the organization, how can you not say no to that, right? And so this talk was born. All right. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about three key themes. I'm going to talk about shaping change. And what is the representation of change in Dune? It's nothing more than, like when you look at Paul riding a sandworm, how can that not represent change? Muad'Dib, the little tiny desert mouse that is highly adaptable, got these massive big ears that capture moisture in order to survive, is what Paul chose as his symbol of leadership when he went to live with the Fremen. So for me, Muad'Dib, that tiny little mouse, represents leadership. And finally, we can't go past the Bene Gesserit. The Bene Gesserit, the neck that turns the head, the people who influence without having direct power. There's heaps and heaps of change in Dune. Like, on the most basic level, we're going from a planet of water to a planet of sand. The House of Atreides is basically given the mandate to mine spice, and so they have to move from their planet which is beautiful, full of water, to this harsh desert planet. And they know it's a trap. This is a trap that's been laid out by the Emperor and the Harkonnens because they don't like the House Atreides because they're too powerful. So they've sent them off to the Arrakis to mine the spice, but they're going to, it's a big, big trap. Be careful, it's a trap. But they know it's a trap. The House Atreides know it's a trap. But they feel that they have to go anyway. So there's a huge amount of political upheaval happening in Dune. And then finally, if you think about Paul, 16, 17-year-old Paul, spotty teenager, potentially future prophet of the whole universe, the changes that he goes throughout the books and the movies, you know, he's wrestling with this concept of being the future prophet, the future leader. You know, he has, as I said, he's got this ability to look into the future a bit. And he can see himself what his leadership is going to be like. And he can see the suffering and the pain and the hurt, and thousands of people die on his behalf. And he's like, I'm not sure if I want that, Mum. So he's going through this significant personal change as well. Now, in software testing, we are so used to dealing with change, aren't we? Like, if you think about, we start a project in software testing, and before even the first release comes out, things have changed, right? The requirements or the stories have changed. The date that the code was meant to be delivered to us has changed. The test environments that we were going to count on are no longer there. Something doesn't work. The test data doesn't work. We're constantly having to respond to the change. And I think we do an absolutely amazing job of it, don't we? So I think we should all give ourselves a round of applause because we're pretty awesome people. So, whoop. Not so fast. All right. So, well, we don't, patting on the back, all done. So today I'm actually, so I think we do a great job of dealing with change. And today I'm going to talk about change in enterprise. Now, like I said, my formal role is managing a tooling team. So I have about 40 software engineers. We create, maintain, and support all the tooling for 5,000 software engineers. So that is my official mandate, is to manage that. But my boss, when she hired me and she said, I want you to be like the Bene Gesserit, what she meant was, I want you to go out and see and find problems and go and fix them. Now, for someone like me, that's like spice. I love doing stuff like that. So what did I do? I didn't actually know what problems that needed to be solved. So I do what I always do, is I went and started talking to people, finding out, looking, poking my nose around in business that wasn't mine, and trying to understand what was happening. I started to see gaps. Now, as you can imagine, large enterprise, huge amounts of complexity, huge amounts of legacy. And because of that, a lot of tech debt, making things really hard to test. So it was no surprise when we came to systems integration testing, it was taking longer and longer, stretching from weeks to months. And in order to try and deal with the complexity, there was a huge emphasis on process. Well, it's not working, it's taking too long. Let's use Jira to fix the problem, right? So a lot of heavy dependency on Jira and process. And on top of that, we've got the silos. We've got to have silos. And so a lot of silos, making it really hard to try and solve the problem in a collaborative way. Now, what do most people do in that situation? I've seen this a lot before. What does it seem when you see all these problems? People think, this is a testing problem. We need to fix the testers. But I think differently. I don't believe this is a testing issue. This is an engineering issue. We need to look at the architecture. Is it properly constructed so we can isolate and decouple our tests? What about the developers and the software engineers? What's their unit testing like? Are they doing any? What about the stories? How are we slicing the stories? Are we using small slices so we can, that have limited dependencies, so we can get the product out into the hands of our customers as fast as possible? So these are the things that interest me. And so I started talking and trying to drive change because I come from scale-up world. And when you see a problem, you just go and fix it. Silly me. I didn't fully understand how enterprise work. I was way too hasty. I tried to push and drive the change, and I got a lot of pushback. People were confused. Why are you doing this? What was I doing? Aren't you meant to be over in tooling, fixing tooling? Like, why are you talking to us about this? And to some degree, they had a point. I didn't have a mandate to be doing this work, apart from my boss saying, I want you to be like the Bene Gesserit. Like, I wasn't going to tell them that. So I really struggled to actually drive and make any differences. Did I tell you I had a great boss? She was awesome. I went to her and I said, no one's listening to me and they keep telling me, what am I doing? And she's, who has worked in enterprise a lot longer than I had, said, we need to give you some sort of, get you some sort of mandate. And so she suggested and arranged that I could present my ideas to leadership, to present what the problems were that I saw, and to provide solutions, and to use an experimentation approach to be able to collect data in order to try and see if those solutions worked. So I did. I presented it to leadership. Bingo! Got some mandate. I was really excited. The second bit of advice she said is, Anne-Marie, you need to learn how to collaborate. Collaborate with your peers. And you need to work with people to achieve your outcomes. So together, we started working with my peers. We started working on something that we called the modern testing strategy. All right, enough of me talking, time to watch a bit of movie. All right, in this clip from Dune, Paul Atreides is going through a test of humanness, whatever that is. You don't need to know. It's called the Gom Jabber. Now, on his neck, there's a needle full of poison, and his hand is in a box of pain. If he takes his hand out of the box, whoosh, instant death. Now, Jessica, his mum, she's been kicked out. She's standing outside the door, typical mum, standing outside the door wondering what's going on inside. Now, she knows actually what he's going to go through because she's been through the test herself. Here we go.
Silence. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings obliteration. And I'll face my fear, not permit it to pass over me and through me.
I love that final defiance in his eyes. So, like I said, when I worked in enterprise, there was a lot of fears I needed to face. As I said, I'm not a political player, and that fear of being stabbed in the back because I didn't see it coming. was really real to me. But there were other fears. I'm actually not someone who enjoys conflict. I prefer to avoid conflict if I can possibly do so. And so I'm not the most assertive person, and I think that sort of the combination of these sorts of fears made it really hard for me to want to address some of the conflicts that I knew were being faced around me. But others around me were facing fears too. The fear of losing status. Who is this person coming into my patch? If she's recognized as being the person who's driving change, what does that say for me? And the fear of losing influence. And I think in enterprise, these are really, really valid fears. And the loss of these can have implications. And in general software testing, I think there's this underlying current we have in our industry with this fear. Fear of lack of recognition. All the work that we do, and somehow it's really hard to get recognition within our organizations about that work. The fear of not quite being good enough because we're not a developer. The fear of losing our job because we're not seen to add value. There's lots and lots of undercurrents of fears in our industry. And we kind of need to be more like Paul. We need to acknowledge our fears. We need to say, yeah, they exist. To observe them, as Alex was talking about in her keynote yesterday, and not be controlled by this fear. Simple, right? Easier said than done. How can we do this? Now, at the same time, my boss was telling me to be the Bene Gesserit. I was reading this book by Adrienne Marie Brown called Emergent Strategy. And you know, you've got these serendipitous moments when you have like all the same theme keeps popping up everywhere. So in this book, Emergent Strategy, she talks about Dune, right? And she says that often we respond to fear. That typically our first response is to respond to fear, and that rather than doing that, we need to be thinking about focusing on what our goals are and the future and where we want to be. She calls this intentional adaptation. Now, it is kind of what it sounds. Intentional adaptation is basically adapting in an intentional way. It's as kind of simple as that. But in order to do that, we need to think about what she calls our dream destination is. What is our big goal? Our big, hairy dream? What are our aspirations? Now, when I went to join Enterprise, it wasn't just to sit back and kind of do tooling. I had a really big vision. I wanted to drive a movement within the organization. A self-sustaining movement where people are passionate and are proud about the quality of the work they do, and they're proud about the testing that they do, and that they feel safe and valued in doing that. I believed, and I still do, that this can be achieved. But intentional adaptation is more than just having a big, big goal. It's how we adapt to change that matters. And Adrienne Marie Brown, she talks about that we need to be in the present. We need to experience the change that is happening. And we need to allow that change to shape us. I think this requires a huge amount of trust and vulnerability, but it's something that I'm really working hard to do. Now, that's all a bit out there, so I wanted to ground this in another clip. So here we have the Duke Leto and Paul. They're still on the planet Caladan. Now, the Duke Leto, like I said, he knows they're going to Arrakis, and it's a big trap. And possibly, the whole family is going to be destroyed. And so he's trying to prep Paul.
I need you by my side. When we get to Arrakis, we'll face enormous danger.
What danger? Fremen? The desert?
Political danger. The great houses look to us for leadership, and this threatens the Emperor. By taking Arrakis from the Harkonnens and making it ours, he sets the stage for a war, which would weaken both houses. But if we hold firm and tap the true power of Arrakis, we could be stronger than ever.
What does that mean? Mining spice, keeping the Fremen in their place? We'd be no better than Harkonnens.
No. By making an alliance with the Fremen. That's what I've sent Duncan Idaho to arrange. Here on Caladan, we've ruled by air power and sea power. On Arrakis, we need to cultivate desert power. I want you sitting in on my council. Learn what I do.
Okay, so this is Duke of Leto. I can't imagine the fear the Duke must have felt, knowing that this is a massive trap and that he's sending his family into that potential death. But instead of fearing that change, the Duke focused on a vision, an intent. And he uses powerful analogies to drive that vision. He talks about something that Paul understands, desert, sea power, air power. And then he makes that analogy to forming an alliance and having desert power. And I think this is what we have to do when we're driving change within enterprise organizations, is to be really, really focused on the outcome that we want to achieve, to have a clarity about where we're going, and to keep our eyes really fixed on that goal and that vision. And this really helps us put our energies where they're most needed. And so even when things don't go to plan, we can still focus on achieving those goals. We pick ourselves up, we refocus, and we go for those goals. Now, I talked about the modern testing strategy, I alluded to it. The modern testing strategy was that vision. It was a powerful statement that outlined why we had to change and how our testing had to be different. And it was something that my peers in the testing community worked on. It talked about ownership of quality. And we used the theme that the enterprise organization was using: sooner, better, happier. We talked about why the change was required. We talked about testing was now and where it needed to be. And in sooner, obviously, we talked about automation. But we also talked about burnout and how if we tried to go too fast, that it would result in people making mistakes. And so we had to think about sooner, but we also had to think about better. And better, we talked about holistic, continuous testing, that we do testing as a team, as a group. We have a shared understanding of what quality is, and that the team works together for that shared outcome. And finally, we talked about happier. And happier was about giving teams the agency to be able to make choices about the type of testing that they could do. And also to offer coaching and support in order to help the teams into that approach. In the book, or in the movie probably more, we see Paul as really being the main leader, but that's not true in the books. In fact, in the books, we see a whole group of leaders with many different strengths coming to the fore. And I think this is really important when we're working in enterprise, that we have this concept of decentralized leadership. Let me explain a bit more. Go back to my enterprise story. So we had created the modern testing strategy. We had rolled it out. We had done quite a bit of a marketing statement on it. And people, it had caught people's imagination within the testing community and outside of the testing community. In fact, it was so successful that people started claiming it as their own. And so people were talking about their modern testing strategy. Now, I would love to say that this made me really happy. It should have made me really happy. But my ego got the better of me. Why are they owning the modern testing strategy? That's mine. Those are my ideas. Why are they talking about it as if it's their own? I had a fear of not being recognized. So I went to my amazing boss, and I said to her, hey, everyone's claiming it as their own. I'm really unhappy about this. And she's like, Anne-Marie, you've got to let it go. Says, you need these people. You cannot do it on your own. And if they think that it's their idea, it's got a much better chance of sticking. So get over it. That was hard. So after much angst, I kind of managed to kind of get that ego down a bit and let it go. Because she was right. We can't drive massive change across organizations by ourselves. And that's why we need each other. And I think one of the things that I learned is that we really need to be aligned on our outcome. We actually had something really strong. We had a shared vision. Now, how we adopted and rolled out that vision was going to be very, very different depending on who the leader was in their area. So it was going to look quite different in different areas. But that was okay, because we had this shared outcome that we could always come back to and adjust and change as we went along. So my peers had different approaches. They had different strengths. One of them was highly structured and dealing with process. Honestly, that was fantastic, because that's my kind of weak spot. And another one was really, really strong in the technical area. And so they were able to really think deeply about how to technically drive out some of these changes and to speak that language. And for me, I focused on training and coaching, the areas that I love and enjoy. And so I put all my efforts into doing that. Now, all of this requires a huge amount of trust. And that's not necessarily easy to build in enterprise. And if you wait for someone to come along and offer you trust, you're probably going to be waiting a long time. So I've discovered that it's better to choose to trust people, rather than to wait for that to happen. And I think this is particularly important with people that you don't necessarily have the same alignment with in terms of ideology. But if you focus on that shared outcome, you can find commonalities, and you can find things that will help you overcome differences. And this is true of communities as well. I've done a lot of volunteering in the software testing community, and I've faced burnout quite a number of times because of the amount of work I put on my shoulders trying to drive change by myself. We can't do it on our own. We need to really focus on shared outcomes, knowing that we actually have more in common than we have in differences. We all want to improve testing. We all want to make the testing community a better place for everyone. Not only is working on your own exhausting, it's also incredibly isolating. The concept of decentralized leadership allows us to roll out change, and when we get tired, and we will get tired, to take a break, because we know someone else is going to step in and take that role. And vice versa. I can step up into the roles when other people are exhausted. All right, we're coming full back to the Bene Gesserit. So, the neck that turns the head. They had this thing called the Missionaria Protectiva. And kind of broadly put, the Missionaria Protectiva meant that tens of thousands of years before even Dune happened, they sent out, the Bene Gesserit sent out people to the different planets to actually seed myths and mythologies. Why? Because they believed that in 10,000 years later, someone, a Bene Gesserit, would come along and they'd recognize that mythology and they would be able to use it to influence and drive change. Now, I'm not suggesting we be quite as manipulative as that, and we certainly don't have 10,000 years to be able to drive change. But I do think that concept of being able to go out and reach out into people outside of your community is really important, not knowing whether it's actually going to bring value or not. So connecting with people outside of the testing, just to get to know them. And who knows whether you can help them or they might be able to help you. Communication, as you all know, is hugely important. And we spent so much time and energy communicating our modern testing strategy out to different elements of the community. We went to showcases, we went to the DevSecOps community, hell, we even went to the PDD Personal Development Day and basically shared our whole modern testing strategy out to 30,000 employees. We were relentless. We set up a podcast where we were able to amplify good work that we thought would be really useful, so help people to see what good looks like, rather than just being told what it should look like. All right, we're getting to the end. I'm going to finish off with a final clip. This is basically when we're now on Arrakis. The House of Atreides has been attacked. The Harkonnens came back, and they destroyed everything. The Duke Leto's dead. Lady Jessica and Paul are managed to escape, and they're trying to find the Fremen. But, of course, nothing is going. Not helping, Mum. So this is Paul's vision that he's having as he's driving this helicopter thing.
The mystery of life isn't a problem to solve, but a reality to experience. A process that cannot be understood by stopping it. We must move with the flow of the process. We must join it. We must flow with it.
Let go. Let it go.
Anyway, turns out the helicopter lands safely and they find the Fremen. You know, people often think that strategy is about thinking critically. It's an analysis thing. And that is very true to some extent. But like the quote says, change is a reality to experience. And we have to flow with the process. And we've got to allow ourselves for the change to shape and change us. And allow the experience to shape us. And we've got to learn to trust our peers, especially if they think differently to us. And we can do this if we have a shared vision and a shared outcome. Like I said, I came to Telstra to drive a movement. Will I be successful? Who knows? But I believe I can be. But I also think that that success will look very, very different to what I originally thought. And it will be quite probable that it will be other people who will achieve the success and take that glory. And I think I'm okay with that. Thank you.
Wow, was that interesting? How are you?
Yeah, good.
You felt good? Very nice. Are you ready for the questions?
Sure, go for it.
All right. First one, how AI will change software testing in your opinion, how testers should prepare for the change, and what tools to learn using?
Yeah. So, just give me a second. How will AI change software testing? I don't know the answer to that yet. I think we all have to experience and find out what that is going to be. I think we have some ideas. I certainly have some ideas of what I would like it to be. I would like to think that software testing becomes more and more important as we devolve some of our authority or some decision-making to the machines. I think it's really important to have that person in the process who is able to have a distance and critically evaluate the system and the product and have the strength to actually say, hey, I think we have a problem here. Like, this is such a critical role we have, and it's so important that we have people in the process willing to stand up and say those things. So I like to think that that's where it will evolve to. But I also kind of observed that people have this immense capacity to devolve decision-making to machines. It's almost like, oh, thank God, a machine can make the decision for me, right? Oh, the machine made me do that. And I think that probably is going to be really hard for organizations to not resist. So I think there's going to be a bit of a tussle about this. And I think some things are going to have to go pretty wrong before people realize that actually, we need to inject people into the system. How should testers prepare for the change? I think we need to really do what we always do, is we use our amazing strengths, our ability to think outside the box, to think analytically, to think critically, to be able to influence people by suggesting outcomes. I think those sorts of strengths are really, really important. Don't shy away from AI. Be open to learning and be able to understand it. So if you have those fears about what AI will do, they're there. They're probably sitting all of us, but that's okay. Let's just open ourselves to the possibility that we have something to learn from all of this, and that we can actually maybe be better because we understand it. I don't know about tools to learn using.
Okay.
That's fine, yep.
All right, thank you, excellent. Next question with 39 votes. Oh my God, Adam Such, well done. Unfortunately, we cannot give a prize for the best question, but you get it theoretically. Okay, who is the emperor in the world of testing?
Well, she's obviously female. I don't know. You decide for yourselves. I know what you're trying to do there. It's a trap.
No answer then?
Oh, look, I think there's so many amazing people out there.
You can say a few if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I have a huge respect for a whole number of people here today who are speaking and talking in the community. They're all at Hostef. Like, it's pretty amazing. I mean, I'm not going to name all the names, but,
right.
Because I'll miss someone, and then that person will get upset.
That's fair enough. Okay, thank you very much. Good question, no answer.
You can come and talk to me privately. Yeah.
All right.
I'm learning enterprise speak.
Okay. I do know the word, but I have no idea how you pronounce it in English. If testers are Fremen, then who is our, how do you?
Messiah.
Messiah.
There's the same theme again. Decentralized leadership, folks. We all play a part in this. I think everyone does, to be honest. I know it sounds like a bit copy-outy, but the reality is that in some ways we all have to be leaders in the testing. Even if you work as a tester in the team, you are the leader of testing in that team, right? And so I think we all have that courage and ability to actually lead in our own ways. So, yeah, deal with that.
Okay, what are the steps required to successfully influence top management to adopt change? You're not happy with this questionnaire, right?
Top 3 steps. Look, I think what has worked for me is having an opinion and being able to back yourself on that opinion. I think that's kind of important in enterprise, where you have so many people jostling and, so many people jostling for attention. So you've got to be able to stand your own and have a conviction about something. And I find that's been really valuable, to be able to speak to and explain why I think something has to be done. And to use the language of the enterprise organization in order to do that. So there was a reason when I did the modern testing strategy, I started with the concept of the why. Like, why do we have to change? And I linked it to the business value and customer experience. That if we didn't change how we tested, we weren't going to be able to deliver business value to our customers in the speed that we needed to. So I coached the whole thing around the why. I think that's really important to help bring people outside of testing along to the journey. And I think to be aware that people have a very simplistic idea about testing, and I think that's fine. I think we shouldn't expect them to have a deep understanding of testing. They've got lots of other things that they're thinking about. So I think you have to be able to explain it simply to them and realize that they're always going to default to automation. No matter how many times you explain that testing is more than automation, they're going to default to that. And that's okay. So talk to them in words that they understand and use.
Thank you. As fear is the mind killer, I think it's how can we create a culture where testers are encouraged to experiment and take risks without the fear of failure.
Yeah, I face this a lot. Okay, and I think this is why being able to get that mandate for the experimentation space was hugely important. So the focus is, rather than talking about experimentation, often you can find it useful to talk about data-driven solutions. So focus on that sort of idea of collecting data and being able to provide that data in order to be able to make a decision about something. So that's one thing. The other thing that is really important is that you have credibility with the testers. So, like, people will see that you understand testing and that you get testing and that you have that experience. So I make a point when I talk to the test engineering community that the training and the coaching I provide is very, very grounded in doing testing. And so I provide workshops, and we actually take a system or an application and we do exploratory testing together. And so I help them in that way. And in that way, they kind of see that, okay, I can trust her because she knows what she's talking about. So there's a huge amount of that I work on.
Thank you. As test automation engineers, how should we deal with constant pushback from manual testers led by their fear of them potentially losing their jobs?
Yeah. And it's a valid fear, right? Who wants to lose their job, right? So I think how do I deal with the constant pushback? I think, like, when I think about change and working with people with change, you work with the people who are most willing to be the change, like do the change first. So you work with those early adopters. You work with those people who are willing to give it a go. There's always going to be some people willing to do that. And then when those people see that the change and they haven't lost their job and there is a possibility, then you're going to get a few more people in the middle group who are going to come with you and join you on that journey. They're just waiting to see whether you're going to fail or not. And that's fair enough, right? So then once you've got the middle, there's always going to be some people who will never change. And that's okay too. Like, that's their choice. So don't stress out about those people who are not wanting to change. Focus on the ones who are willing to come with you on the journey.
Thank you. You're still You're still okay with a few more questions?
Sure,
all right.
sure. Well, I'm having a great time.
Oh, that's great. Is AI the Muad'Dib of testers?
I have no idea.
Okay, thank you.
Is AI I don't even know what that means. The Muad'Dib. Okay, so Muad'Dib is the little mouse. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I like that. I never thought about that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It helps us adapt and respond to change, and yeah, that's kind of cool. Thank you.
And it's
whoever gave that.
It's really reassuring that you didn't understand the question at first either. Very good. All right. Has your role been changed after people started to believe that your ideas are theirs?
It is. It's in the process of changing too. Like, I think I've only been there a year, and a year is a very short time in enterprise. I'm working with people who've been there for 20 years. So really, I'm a newbie, and what I need to kind of still build up that cred. I still need to build up the trust within the organization. I truly believe, as things become clearer to people, that we will get a better organizational structure that will help drive the mandate. So I think this is just a question of time for a lot of these things to evolve. And again, focusing on that big goal keeps me motivated to keep driving and getting more and more mandate.
Great, great, thank you. Part 1 or part 2, and why?
Part 1 of part 2, what?
Thank God, I have no idea.
I know there's 2 parts.
I think it's the movie. I guess that's where you need to choose
from. Part 1 or
from.
part 2. I guess we're mostly in part 1, right? Well, maybe I'll have to come back next year and give you part 2.
All right, thank you. What do you think? Who can be the Bene Gesserit in the software development industry?
Who has the ability to see into the future? I don't know. Look, I think that we need to be influential. I think it's really hard because we don't have that mandate. So we're quite good at trying to achieve things where we don't have mandate. But it is a tireless task, right? It's a hard job to try and convince people to change when you don't necessarily have that top-down authority. It's one of the reasons why I went into head of engineering in one of the scale-ups, because I was tired of trying to inject change horizontally and did it top-down instead. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's Adam with, I think, a pizza slice. What would you say should be a first step for a random tester with generally low visibility to make their vision of change become reality eventually?
Yeah, like, I think there is something about the locus of control and what you can and can't change, and to be very aware of what you can and can't change. So you might have massive aspirations, and they can be the outer circle. I have this on my blog, if you want to go and have it. It's about in my quality coaching book, which I forgot to mention about. But anyway, I have a blog, and it's about quality coaching. And in it, I talk about sort of what you can and can't control, and there's a downloadable template. You can use that. But basically, try and focus on the things that you can change. There's no problem having big goals and dreams, but be realistic about what you can achieve. There's potential for burnout, and you want to look after yourself.
Okay, depending on the length of your answer, this is either the last question or we have one more. If you have to choose, which house would you choose to be born in?
Oh, Arrakis, come on. How could you be, I don't know. Done.
Okay, we have one more. Do you think the threat of a few hyperscalers to established, I love it when it jumps, to established enterprises also threatens more startups and stifles entrepreneurship?
I think bigger than that is the dry up of funding in venture capitalists and the way that has been, I guess, a lot of, I don't know if this is true or not, but this is how I see it, is a lot of that funding has been injected into AI. And so it's been siphoned off into that type of work, and we're not seeing the investment in startups and scale-ups that we used to see. I think that's happened in the last 2 or 3 years, and I think that's a huge shame. So yeah, look, I mean, these hyperscalers are enterprise. That's the reality. So.
Will you stay with us during the day?
I am here
Can they approach you?
Yep, I'm here till lunchtime, just
That's
after
amazing.
lunch.
So
yeah.
during the coffee break, they can approach you.
Sure,
if they have
absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, Anne-Marie CHARRETT, a huge applause for her.